A young mother stabbed to death in her own home.
This was by far the worst crime scene I had ever walked into.
A family torn apart.
She was a great mom.
Her twin daughters left alone.
This is something that no child should ever have to endure.
Police run down lead after lead, but they can't find the killer.
He's telling the truth.
But there's one witness that blows the case wide open.
A big breakthrough in the case. There was a sense of, okay, this is going somewhere now.
A witness that provides clues to the shocking truth about who killed Nikki Whitehead. Conyers, Georgia. Wednesday, January 13th, 2010, started out as just another day on patrol for Rockdale County Sheriff's Office Deputy Al Irwin. Until twin sisters Jasmaya and Tasmaya Whitehead flag Irwin down in a panic. They tell Irwin their mother, Nikki, has been murdered.
What's going on? What's going on? Girls, what's your address? Where is she? Head back up to 17 Elm Street Northwest. Come on, girls, in the car. Unit 770 responding.
Irwin calls for backup and takes the twins back to the gated community where they live.
Hey, girls, just hang tight. Everything's gonna be okay, all right?
Detectives Ken Swift and Jackie Dunn are first through the door.
Let's have a look.
When we walked into the house, you could immediately see the pools of blood on the carpet, the drag marks in the carpet from the carpet into the master bedroom. You could see the blood splatter, the droplets that were on the walls, on the couch, on the ceiling, on coffee tables. She had been brutally murdered. You could smell the blood everywhere in the house, like wet, rusting metal in the air. It was that strong. This was by far the worst crime scene I had ever walked into.
Pamela White speaking. Just one moment, please.
25 miles away in Atlanta, Nikki's mother, Linda Whitehead, gets the call that every parent dreads.
Hello, Mrs. Whitehead.
I answered the phone, and that was the worst phone call I have ever received in my life. Yaker, who is my daughter's friend, was on the other end, and she was telling me that something had happened to Nikki, and she was at home. At that point, I was so nervous. I was shaking. I was just crying. I couldn't contain myself. We rode out to Conyers. I saw a whole lot of police, and I was trying to go through the gate. And the police asked me, he said, "Ma'am, do you stay here?" And I said, "No, my daughter does." And he said, "Miss Whitehead," he said, "well, the only thing I can tell you is that she has expired." I was so numb and the only thing I could think about was my child. not being here.
Nikki Whitehead was a 34-year-old mother of two. She was devoted to her twin daughters, Jasmaya and Tasmaya.
She was a great mom. She was concerned about their manners, how they look. They attended church. She had them in tennis. She had them in ballet, piano lesson. She was a great, great mother.
What's happening here?
Nikki's family is racked with shock and grief.
We've got a lot of people on the scene here, and we are going to find out exactly.
Investigators have to start hunting down a killer. The brutality of the killing convinces police that this crime was personal business.
Whoever was stabbing her was really expressing their anger in this stabbing, which is one of the clues. Not a stranger, more than likely, but somebody that's going to be close to her.
The first person police need to speak to is the man Nikki and the twins lived with, a truck driver named Robert Head.
They had been together for quite some time, and he raised Jazz and Taz like his own. I mean, he loved Jazz and Taz.
But Robert Head has left town. The detectives need to speak to him.
We began to call Robert immediately, and were unable to get a hold of his cell phone.
Guys, you got anything?
While the investigation team tries to get hold of Head, forensic teams swarm the house, looking for anything that will lead them to the killer.
Anytime you have a situation like this, especially a murder, the clock always starts ticking. There are certain things that begin to deteriorate very quickly over a short period of time, especially concerning blood and other bodily fluids. That clock is always ticking in the back of your head.
The apparent murder weapon was just a vase. Might have been
Just the
fairly
vase?
quietly.
All the windows are closed.
Take a look.
There's no sign of a break-in.
You got something there, Tech?
And it looks like someone even tried to clean up.
We took luminol and sprayed it. It's a chemical that reveals blood. Even if somebody's tried to clean it up, you'll usually see it. So we know there was some time spent trying to clean up a little bit.
While CSI processes the scene, the detectives need to find out if any of the neighbors saw or heard anything that will help them find the killer.
I have a special operations unit, and I called them in, and I got them to begin canvassing door to door in the neighborhood.
You see this, detective?
As we were doing the canvass, we noticed a blotch of blood on the neighbor's house.
I want photographs, and I want to make sure forensics gets a good look at this before it gets spoiled in any way, shape, or form, okay?
Got it.
Blood on the neighbor's door. The police have to wonder what happened on the other side of that door.
Here for some cameras. Obviously, people have cameras. Have a look.
But then they see something that might give them their first big clue.
What's that? Right there.
That security camera just might show what happened during Nikki Whitehead's last moments alive. Police in Conyers, Georgia are trying to find out who brutally murdered mother of two, Nikki Whitehead. Investigators have two major leads in the case. First, they're trying to find Nikki's missing partner, Robert Head. And they've just found blood in an unlikely place, the front door of Nikki's next-door neighbor.
Good morning.
Everybody is a suspect at first.
I'm Chief Jackson.
Friends, family, boyfriends, husbands cannot be ruled out.
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that. Anything strange happened here in the last 24 hours?
Investigators question the neighbor.
So we talked to the neighbor. The neighbor remembered that he was still in bed that morning and that he had heard somebody knock at the door.
Did you come to the door and answer it and see who was at that door?
And he had just discounted it.
The neighbor says he has nothing to do with Nikki's murder. But they don't have to take his word for it. He agrees to turn over video from his surveillance camera.
Just let me know that they've actually got some footage for us to look at, so fingers crossed here. Let's have a look.
The neighbor says someone knocked on his door earlier that morning.
Okay.
The tape could rule the neighbor out or in as a suspect. The footage is useless. The CCTV camera was pointing the wrong way. With no usable video and no other evidence, the police can't tie the neighbor to the crime. But with the clock ticking and a killer on the loose, Swift and Dunn turn to Nikki's twin daughters.
We brought them upstairs and sat them down in the interview room where they were able to just kind of relax.
I'm afraid. I'm afraid.
When we first saw them, Jasmine was very distraught, was crying. You know, I can't believe this happened.
Oh, Grandma. Be okay, Grandma. Be okay.
You have two young twin daughters who come home from school to find a grisly murder scene in their house and their mom deceased. You can't help but feel sorry for them and feel like that, you know, this is something that no child should ever have to endure.
He's not gonna come back.
When we got them here, the first thing I asked them is, could they tell me what happened? Just start from the beginning of your day.
They got up. Yeah, usually like 6:45. 6:45 to 7. Mom? So I said Mama first. And she's like, you know, we're going to school and all that. Mom? So after that, walked out the door.
Don't we have that Spanish exam today? Yes. I didn't even practice anything.
They left to go catch a bus.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
He had missed the bus, so he was gonna walk. We went to the house. He just walked. So got to school. We went through all our classes.
When they got to the bus stop, they realized they had missed the bus. And instead of going back and asking their mother for a ride, they had decided to walk to school. They told us they were there by first period, so basically they didn't miss any of their day's school.
Did you ride the bus home from school? You caught the bus at school? You made all your classes today?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so then
And when they came home,
said,
one of the twins said they went inside.
and I was like, Ricky likes everyone. Yeah. It's no big deal.
Noticed the light to her room was on. Went to a room and then heard the other one screaming. And then that's when they ran outside and ran into a sheriff's department deputy that happened to be driving by.
The twins are obviously very distressed.
It's just really gut-wrenching. It really pulls your heart because you can just imagine being 16 and coming home from school and not just your mother's murdered, but it's such a violent scene that you have to see.
Police asked the twins if their mom felt threatened by anyone.
Do you have any close friends that came over often?
Their mom didn't have any enemies, but she did have a secret.
Well, he was coming in. Yeah.
Really?
His name was Joe Carter.
Yeah.
Right.
A boyfriend her fiancé, Robert Head, didn't know about.
The twins told us that Nikki also had a boyfriend on the side other than Robert.
Was Nikki Whitehead involved in a deadly love triangle with Robert Head and Joe Carter?
How did your mom and Joe get along?
They were arguing.
They were arguing?
Yeah.
They had heard her screaming into the phone telling Joe not to come to her house.
She was stressed about it.
It says, hey, pay attention to this. It's two jealous men you know, over the same woman.
He's like a men's hairdresser? Like a barber, you mean?
Yeah.
This is a, you know, this is a good chance or something good to follow up on.
In Conyers, Georgia, detectives have another suspect in the brutal murder of Nikki Whitehead. Nikki has been two-timing her missing fiancé, Robert Head, with a barber named Joe Carter.
He's a side love interest, much younger than Mr. Head, who is able to provide Miss Whitehead with a home for her and her daughters. So yes, he was a person of interest, and that's why we went and found Mr. Carter that same night. It was well into the evening. The barbershop was actually closed, and there were several individuals standing out front.
Good evening, gentlemen.
And so Sergeant Moon and I walked up to him and made contact with him.
We're looking for a man by the name of Joe Carter. Would you happen to know who he is?
Trying to see if one of them was in fact Joe.
Haven't heard that name before?
I knew it, I told you. I don't know anything about that.
All the gentlemen standing outside, they did not want to talk to us.
Haven't heard that name before? Nothing at all? No. Well, we're the cops,
and so
we're trying to look for
we
Joe
just
Carter.
simply came out and said it, that, hey, we're looking for Joe Carter. We need to speak to him about Miss Whitehead. She's been murdered. At that point, you could tell instantly who Mr. Carter was.
Thank you for speaking with us tonight. We just had a couple questions about Miss Whitehead.
Carter appears to be shocked, but the police want to question him.
We begin to ask him questions.
We understand that you were in a relationship with her. Wanted to ask you when the last time you saw her was.
Where he had been the last 48 hours, the nature of his relationship with Miss Whitehead.
You didn't think I did it, do you?
Well, sir, we just got to ask the questions.
Carter doesn't want to be a suspect in a murder.
She came out of my place a couple of days ago.
He talks.
My place. She told me she was...
He tells investigators that the night before the murder, Nikki had come to his house right after her fashion class was over.
We need to talk.
That's where he told Nikki he didn't want to see her anymore.
Their relationship had been suffering from some problems.
I'm not getting it. We've moved on. I've moved on. Please do the same. I've had enough.
Nikki was furious and stormed out of his apartment building. He says that was the last time he ever saw Nikki Whitehead alive. Is he telling the truth? Police discover a way to find out.
Is there any chance...
Surveillance cameras trained on the front door to Carter's condo building.
Hey, Swift. Nothing yet. We're just,
Detectives Swift and Dunn fast forward to 10:30 p.m., the time when Carter claims that Nikki arrived. They wait and watch.
Oh, okay, there she is. She's arriving. What time is that on your screen?
10:30.
Just like Carter claimed, Nikki arrives around 10:30 p.m.
Can you speed it up? Let's see what time she leaves. What time is that?
11:01. 11:01. She's leaving.
There you go.
And half an hour later, there she is again, leaving exactly when Carter said she did.
He was telling the truth on that.
But the police are still not totally convinced.
Still uneasy about that.
The CCTV only proves Nikki was there when he said she was. Carter could still be the killer.
I still say we get a poly on him.
The police ask him to take a polygraph test.
You meet with a polygrapher.
In reference to Nikki's death, are you going to answer my
And then they hook their pulse up and different measurements that they take. And a polygrapher will ask them the question and it measures a response. And they're very skilled at it.
Before 2009, have you ever used a weapon to hurt him?
Carter denies he's the killer. The test is complete, but while investigators wait for results,
I think we should get to the chase.
This was a violent encounter with Nikki. Whoever murdered her fought with her.
and that life and death fight surely left telltale marks on the killer's body.
Mr. Carter, could I please ask you to stand for us?
We know Nikki was fighting defensively, and she had fingernails, so we're looking to see if somebody might have scratch marks, bite marks, etc.
And just lift your shirt for us. Uh-huh.
He looks clean.
There isn't a mark on him.
Yeah. Thank you.
But what about the polygraph?
It's telling the truth.
The polygrapher was very confident that Joe was being truthful.
Carter has no injuries, and he's passed the lie detector test. It looks like Joe Carter is off the hook. With Carter in the clear, the police have just one suspect left, Nikki's truck driver fiancé, Robert Head. But Head left town on the morning of the murder and hasn't been heard from since. His cell phone isn't answering, and no one knows where he is. Murder victim Nikki Whitehead's secret lover, Joe Carter, is off the hook, leaving investigators in Conyers, Georgia, without a prime suspect. That leads them back to square one, right where they left Nikki's other love interest, Robert Head.
It's very reasonable for anyone to think that Robert would be furious finding out about Joe.
But Head has been out of town since the morning of the murder. And what's more, he's not answering his cell phone. The detectives need to speak to him urgently. And then...
Hello? Hello, yes. Robert Head?
Yeah, this is Robert Head. Who's this?
This is Captain Jackie Dunn.
So we talked to Robert by phone, and he explained to us that he was out Midwest.
Yeah?
When they finally tell Head what happened to his fiancée, he seems genuinely shocked.
What?
But Robert Head wouldn't be the first killer to act surprised when facing police questions. If he was on the road and hundreds of miles away when Nikki was killed, as he claims, there should be a record of it.
Chief?
Yes.
GPS coordinates.
Great, thank you.
Head's trucking company sends over the GPS data, and it confirms that his truck was out of state at the time of Nikki's murder.
Yeah, I've got that information now. We need to run with...
But it doesn't prove that Head was driving.
Yeah, 15 minutes, Ken, thank you.
It's possible someone else was driving, giving Robert Head an alibi. The data shows that Head's truck stopped for gas in Shelbyville, Indiana, at around 8:30 on the morning of the murder. And gas stations have surveillance cameras. Now they have to determine whether Head was actually driving that truck. They load up the gas station's surveillance footage.
All right, can you speed it up a little bit until we get the actual truck in view? When he gets out of that truck, I want you to freeze on his face.
There's no question it's Robert Head. He was 550 miles away from Conyers in Indiana when Nikki was murdered, just as he claimed. It's back to the drawing board for Dunn and his men. With the case stalling, investigators go back to the crime scene, looking for the one thing that might help them solve this case.
I took some of my special operation officers, and I had them literally walk the neighborhood And as they walk, they look for surveillance cameras.
They spot a security camera at a gas station on West Avenue, the road opposite Nicky's gated community.
All right, so what do we got, Swift?
Camera back there, camera over here.
Yeah.
We have a couple around here. Maybe we can check the footage on that.
Well, we need to talk to somebody about that, right?
It's a long shot, but investigators hope to see something, anything that leads them to Nicky's killer.
Appreciate you doing this for us. All right, so you guys keep this on a 24-hour loop. How does that work?
They begin to go through the footage from the morning of Nicky's murder.
Can you rewind it? We're not seeing anything right now.
They scroll back. Still nothing.
Nothing on that?
Nothing.
They go forward.
And then we had a lucky break.
What's that there? Okay, hold it right there.
It's Nicky's twin daughters, Jasmaya and Tasmaya.
Look at that, Swift.
When we look at their video, we see the twins go up to a vehicle and speak to the driver for a minute and then get into the vehicle and drive away.
Who's driving the car? And what connection does he have to Nicky's twin daughters?
We're gonna need to get a copy of this tape because we gotta bring it back. We gotta blow it up.
It was a big breakthrough in the case. There was a sense of, okay, this is going somewhere now.
We could tell that the car was unique. White hood with a blue bumper. So we distributed what is commonly known as a BOLO. If you see this car, please immediately give us a call. And that's what happened.
It's not long before the car is spotted in the next town. The driver is a middle-aged man named Robert Leonard.
When we were able to talk to Mr. Leonard, he confirmed that he was just filling up gas when both Jasmaya and Tasmaya approached him and asked him for a ride to school.
Leonard says he dropped the twins off at school about 5 minutes later. The police don't buy Leonard's story.
You have a grown man driving a car at a gas station and two completely unfamiliar 16-year-old girls come up to you and ask you for a ride. I would guess that most people would say no.
Leonard agrees to let the police search his car. It's clean, no blood, no signs of a struggle. But he's not off the hook. If he dropped the girls off at school, then there's going to be a record of it. People can lie. Video cameras don't. And Rockdale County High School has excellent CCTV.
Here's your shot you have?
That's the one right there.
That's the one? Because we'll need to see the parking lot.
They cue the tape up to 8 a.m., the time the twins said they got to school. There's no sign of Leonard's car or the twins. 8:30, still no sign of the car. (9:30). 10. Where is Leonard's car? And where are Jasmaya and Tasmaya?
Can you rewind that? Do you recognize that car?
Sure do. Leonard's car.
At 10:16, they see Leonard's car with its distinctive white hood and blue bumper pull up at the school gate.
10:16:25.
16:25. Okay. We're gonna need a shot of the front foyer to see who gets out of that car. Can you do that?
Yes, we can.
It'll be about a minute after. So can you play it from 10:17? Yeah, is that the front foyer?
Yes.
It's Jasmaya and Tasmaya walking into their school. Leonard is telling the truth. But something is bothering Dunn. During their investigation, the girls claimed they'd arrived at school at 8 a.m., but the tape shows they walked in at 10:17 a.m.
So they've missed 2 classes, and in their interviews with us, they're adamant that they didn't miss any classes and that they got there, shortly after 8.
Someone's not telling the truth.
Their stories are not adding up.
When they gave us this story that deceived us as to time, then obviously we're beginning to say we need to look at the twins a lot closer.
Conyers detectives are investigating the brutal murder of Nikki Whitehead. They have no leads and no suspects. But they've just discovered that high school CCTV footage has proved that Nikki's twin daughters, Jasmaya and Tasmaya, lied to them about the time they arrived at school on the day of the murder. Something is not adding up.
Detective Carson and I just need to back this up a little bit because we're a little unclear about some of the things that you've told us. Let's just go back through it. So
he asks them again what time they showed up for school.
You didn't get to school till 10:30. It was 10:30, right?
10:15, yeah.
10:15.
Yep.
This time, Jazz and Taz tell police that they'd actually overslept on Wednesday morning and went into school late.
Why didn't you tell me this before? This is all brand new information, though, isn't it?
Swift probes deeper, and that's when the twins change their story once again.
Missing 3 classes, which you neglected to tell us.
They say that they'd argued with their mom, Nikki, the very morning she was murdered.
Real murder, okay? Yeah.
Your mother.
It's something they never mentioned before.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's find out exactly what happened.
We're sad. We just lost our mom, and now you're...
We talked to them kind of into the night, discussing all this, but kind of confronting them with some of their discrepancies.
All right. Tad, I want you to come out here and sit with them for a minute. I want to talk to your sister.
We began trying tactics, interview tactics, such as we'll tell Jazz, hey Jazz, Taz said this.
All right, well, you come out here and talk with them, and I'll bring your sister in here. I just want to be sure I get your stories separate.
Trying to see if that will throw them off and get them to come to a different statement.
As the implication of the CCTV footage becomes clear, the twins' story keeps changing. Dunn brings the twins back together. Why are they lying?
I began to turn it more into an interrogation where I was confronting them with the discrepancies.
As the pressure builds on the girls, their attitude changes.
Footage on the cameras do not lie.
This is some kind of joke, right?
That charm left them real quick.
Are you kidding me? Seriously?
Do I look like I'm kidding?
And they turned into 2 little hostile young ladies that I was amazed at how much hostility could come out of them and how much contrast that was to how sweet they had been earlier when they were trying to manipulate.
Oh, my attitude.
I should have spotted this a while ago.
And there's something that makes them even more suspicious.
The entire time I'm interviewing, we're inside. It's a comfortable atmosphere. They're wearing gloves and still have their jacket on. And I knew eventually I'm going to have to get her to take those gloves off and get that jacket off so I can look at her hands and arms.
Detective Carson isolates the twins from each other again. Then he asks Jazz to take off her gloves and coat.
Let me see your hands and your arms. Pull your things off.
Eventually, I had her remove the gloves and the jacket, and there I could see scratches and bite marks on her arm.
What happened here?
I got into a fight.
You had a fight with her? When?
Yesterday.
The veteran detective has seen marks like these before. They look like defensive wounds, the kind someone makes when they're fighting for their life. And both twins have them.
The nature of the injury was such that it was caused by someone who had a particular set of teeth, specifically a gap in the teeth. Both Jasmine and Tasmaya did not have that gap in their teeth, and Nikki did.
It's almost too horrific to be true, but Jasmaya and Tasmaya just became prime suspects in the stabbing of their own mother.
This is what we're doing, so I got him in the room.
Police return once more to the Whiteheads' home, this time to search for evidence linking Nikki's twin daughters to the killing. Before long, they uncover something that lays out their plan almost word for word.
In one of their journals, we can see where at a point they were writing, you can see the two different handwriting, and one would write and one would respond.
The police can hardly believe what they're reading.
And they actually wrote that we've got to do it, we've got to get rid of her. And then the other one agrees, we've got to get rid of her and got to get rid of her ASAP.
The lies. The defensive wounds. And now, chilling journal entries incriminating these 16-year-old twins.
We had a mountain of evidence that all pointed back to the two of them.
Get your seatbelt back on.
Once the twins were arrested, they were placed into the back seat of police cars where we always have audio and video recording, especially in a case like this.
Yeah, what we put together in a restaurant there, but they can't keep us for that. Yeah, these redneck, dumb, dirty cop did this bullshit. I just had some teeth marks. Can you believe this? Evidence, bite marks and blood.
The audio in the car, it was just, for us as police officers and detectives, it was just the final nail and another confirmation that we had it right.
When the truth is finally revealed, this nightmare Nikki's family are living somehow gets even worse.
I've lost my oldest child. I lost my first set of grandkids. I always saw them at Harvard or Yale, and never would I have ever imagined that they would be sitting in a jail cell for killing their mother.
Facing a mountain of evidence, the twins finally admit what they've done. For the past few weeks, like many parents, Nikki has been struggling with her teenage daughters.
What the hell is wrong with you?
But then on the 13th of January, things boil over when Jazz and Taz are late for school.
I think she was mad about us being late. She was dead.
Then, simmering teenage resentment soon blows up into an explosive fight.
Me. What are you doing? Get out! It wasn't like it was a fight on the street. It was more of a fight till somebody died. We all yelled.
Everybody's yelling.
We all is mad. No! Get out! I think Jazz hit with the base. I picked up the pot, and I hit with the pot.
Nikki probably had some reserve in defending herself. These were her daughters. She probably didn't want to hit them and be violent with them as you would need to be to fend off this kind of attack. And so that reserve probably, and that love and hesitation to fight back probably cost her life.
She bit me in the chest. I said, I'm not that big. So she bit me, she latched on to me, and I'm trying to get her off of me because it hurts. So I'm trying to punch her, I guess. And I think they had stabbed her. She was on the floor again. It was all on the floor.
These two girls stabbed her over and over and over again, 50-something times.
Look, stop yelling. Dad said, she said, take it to the tub.
The twins then drag her dead body into the bathtub.
Sorry, it was just confusion. There's like turmoil. It's just when I get nervous.
I don't know how any 16-year-old can look at their mother and decide to end her life.
Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and are both sentenced to 30 years behind bars. Twin sentences for these twisted twin killers. CCTV played a key role in the conviction of Taz and Jazz Whitehead.
The surveillance video was the first proof that they were being deceptive to us. It gave us the evidence that we needed to focus on them.
I'm afraid for others when they get out. You know, I can't say that they would never kill again, you know, because if you can do this to your own mother,